I want to talk about why I think that Michael Schur's The Good Place is the most optimist show out there. For those of you who haven't seen it, or those of you who need a refresher, it follows these four humans who end up in what they think is the good place, meaning heaven, after they died, and it's their antics as they try to at first work through the idea of what happens in an eternity of happiness. And then also as they start to suspect that maybe they're not in the good place, and they start to change the world around them, and much more importantly, they start to change each other and themselves. So the first thing I want to look at in terms of The Good Place's optimism is just how deeply the show believes that people can become better. So we have Eleanor, played by Kristen Bell, and she is exceedingly selfish. She spent a whole life being a selfish human, and she falls in love with Chidi, who is William Jackson Harper, and he used to be an ethics professor, but he is utterly incapable of making a decision. He's the most indecisive person in the world, and that ends up hurting a lot of people, not to mention himself. Then we have Jason, who is played by Manny Jacinto, and he is this very impulsive, not the sharpest tool in the shed character who was plagued all his life by these bad decisions that he made. And then lastly, we have Tahani, played by Jameela Jamil, and she is this incredibly wealthy socialite who spent her life raising all sorts of money for a charity, but she did it for the wrong reasons. She's very insecure and envious and jealous. So these four people who in life would be fun, they're all fun, of course, but would be very difficult company to have, because at the end they're always making bad decisions, come into this space and they first figure out that they need to change themselves, and then they figure out that they have to do it together. And it's this idea that no matter what our core defect is, we can actually, if we understand it and if we're giving the right conditions, we can actually change ourselves by changing each other. And working together is such a beautiful and meaningful and much needed in today's world idea, and the show portrays that beautifully. The Good Place is such an optimistic show that it not only believes that humans can change, but it also believes that these beings that have lived for a very, very long time, or that aren't even real beings but AI creatures, can also change. In the show we have Michael, Ted Danson, who is this eternal creature who might be a godlike presence or might be a demon. And he, as he engages with Eleanor and Chidi and Tahani and Jason, begins to realize that even though he's got a much better brain and has a much longer view of everything, he is completely at a loss for what it's like to have empathy and what it's like to have to hustle. And now he finds himself faced with these people who have a very different experience, and he ends up changing with them as he realizes that he might have much more knowledge and much more time, but his perspective is rather shallow. And then there's I think, many people's favorite character, certainly the favorite character in our house, which is Janet. And she's an AI being, and she is played by Darcy Carden, and there's good Janets and there's bad Janets. And she plays them with all the love and fun and deliciousness. But as the Janets have been created, they're supposed to just go as their programming demands. But in the show, they keep getting rebooted, which is something that should not happen to them. And every time they get rebooted, they're very disoriented. They become childlike. But during those moments of childlikeness, they're able to grow and learn, and they become more and more and more human. And our Janet falls in love, which is just a beautiful, very romantic part of the show. And again, it's a show that's telling us even these beings that are very rigid and should work only a certain way can change their very nature. They can develop feelings and grow. And our last character is Maya Rudolph's Judge Jen, who is meant to be impartial, and she is very funny and rather like she cares nothing about the humans or the demons. She only cares about fairness and justice and TV. She loves TV. But even this person finds a way to go outside of this world that she lives in once she ends up actually going to Earth and realizing what it's like. She's like, oh, I'm a Black woman? It turns out that it's terrible for Black women. But once she realizes just how hard it has become for humans in the world, she's able to look beyond her very rigid programming, for lack of a better word, and think in completely new ways, and of course completely transform the way that the afterlife functions. So the show really is such a strong believer in our ability to grow. That's its whole theme, which is about as optimistic as it gets, that even these primordial beings, artificial beings, beings that have been created to think only one way, are able to be transformed by the power of our human protagonists and by the power of their own journey throughout the show. The Good Place's optimism doesn't just come from the ability of everybody to work together and everybody to change, but it also has a sense that there is great passion for all of us, but that passion is different for different people. So, for example, we have Eleanor and Chidi, and we have Jason and Janet. These are our lovers. In this show, they're told that they have soulmates, and they're purposefully put with people who should really not work for them, they should be very miserable with, as a way to get them to really struggle with their need to connect and to feel like, I'm supposed to love this person for eternity, but I can't stand them. But of course, it being an optimistic show, these opposites, these people that should never possibly work, end up falling in love. And really, over the course of the show, which takes thousands of years, it doesn't feel like it. Like you're living through thousands of years, they really grow to become each other's person. In the case of Eleanor and Chidi, they're humans. In the case of Jason and Janet, it's human plus AI creature. But there's great belief in romance in the show, but there's also a great belief that for those of us who are not interested in romance, that wouldn't be me, there are other ways in which you can find satisfaction. So Tahani, for example, is not somebody for whom romance is important. Her wound does not have to do with it. Well, it does have to do with the heart, but not the romantic side of the heart. She never felt loved by her parents. She never felt like the things that she did had purpose. So her whole journey has nothing to do with who she sleeps with, and she does sleep with a few people. It has to do with her finding her passion in a different way and living a life over these thousands of years in which she is finally bringing into the world the best of her, as opposed to pretending to bring the best of her into the world. So whether you're a romantic or whether you're somebody whose passion is creation and making things and going out there, this is the show for you. And it just started raining because, you know, the creatures of the good place love this video and they want us to, they're agreeing with us. Perhaps the most optimistic aspect of the good place is its argument or belief that the fact that our lives will end is what gives them meaning. Theoretically, our characters are looking for eternal happiness. They're trying to get into heaven, where we've been told one never dies, and if you get into heaven, you get to be happy for eternity and have the things you want and be with the people you love if they happen to get into heaven as well. And it's this dream that we've been culturally fed, and we've grown to believe in it and to enjoy it. But the show questions the idea that if we in fact had everything we wanted for eternity, we would thrive and be as happy as we think we would be. So instead, it makes a claim for growing over time and for the fact that even if we don't get to live as long as we would like, that is okay, because the meaning of our lives comes from that tension between knowing that at some point it will end, and that pushes us to be the best people we can for ourselves and for those we love. So there you have it. The Good Place is as optimistic as it gets, and oh my God, do we need an optimistic show right now. So watch it if you haven't, rewatch it if you have, and let me know. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on the show and on why it makes for an optimistic experience? And please like, subscribe, and comment. And look at that, the rain stayed with us.